just so that y'all know, it's kind of a joint project, and so we're actually going to just do this jointly with the middle school. So we'll just kind of, we won't stop one and go into the other. It'll just transition into all the components. So.
Okay, so for our problem of practice, we had discussed in years past the need to develop leadership skills in our youth before that they are thrown out into the world of work or college or whatever the case may be. So currently we did not have, or prior to this, we did not have any means to do this either in the middle school or the high school. So our problem of practice then became a program to develop these leadership skills that would improve employability skills and help our kids be more successful in the future. So through that, we are hoping that this leads to some badging and some micro-credentialing and some things that KVEC has also brought to the table in order to help us to do this for our kids. So in order to do that, let me go on to the next. We have a 12-step student leadership protocol. And we have modified our Wednesday schedule, so it's something that's in place. It's not something that we have to alter the schedule every Wednesday. Our students know that the schedule is going to be our leadership advisory or a club period. Once a month, we meet in our student organization clubs. So that leaves 3 other Wednesdays, 2 of which are dedicated to our leadership, our 12-step model. And then another one's like an advisory type period. They can do some follow-up activities. What we did with our groups, we have different career majors, and we're able to group our students based on their career majors. So our by grade level, for instance, our 12th grade health science students are paired with an allied health instructor. So they do their activities. As I've said in the past, there's no trade secrets. We just feel like if we pair them with like-minded students and give them an advisor that has been through, in this case, the nursing programs and education, that they would have some information to help steer them on their way.
We had to look at our community partners. As we're looking at leadership, this is one of maybe the first times that a school is really put a lot of time, effort, emphasis into a thing that is not in-game assessment oriented at the end of the year. We have a model that we're trying to build a skill set, leadership, that will not be seen on the ACT. We will not see this at the end of course assessment. We don't have an accountability model that measures leadership anywhere, but that's why we think it's really important. Every time you go to a teacher's meeting in the summer, everybody will go, man, if we were really doing our jobs, we'd teach the kids leadership. We'd teach them these things. And then everybody goes back to their classroom and says, or we can get ready for the test that is going to determine if our district's successful or not. So we decided to actually put leadership in, and one big thing we needed to do is bring that to our site-based decision-making council, and they have actually went ahead and they're pushing forward on us having a credit on our transcript for leadership. The first quarter credit is at the end of your freshman year. We have a bar academy, so we have asset building, internal, external, that we work on those students. They get a quarter credit at the end of that year. Sophomore year, junior year, freshman year, they have the leadership 12 steps. You get 4 steps each year. But our site base has decided that will be a credit that will actually be on a transcript. So a student comes through and says, I want to apply for college. I have a transcript that shows leadership. And there's not a lot of colleges that are going to see that. The other community partners on our advisor-advisee scale is we have to get people to come in to talk to our students. But it's not come in and talk to our juniors. It's come in and talk to my engineering students. Come in and talk to her biomedical students. And when we have advisor-advisee sessions, things are for them. And the students aren't broke up by the alphabet anymore. They're broke up by their interests. Their interest, we cater to them, and that helps them in their leadership model. They want to be better students because they're being told things that actually they care about, that matter to them. So the community outreach with site-based coming through and awarding the credit on a transcript, and our partners out in our community coming into our school, talking to students that are wanting to be them one day, we're really getting ourselves into a pretty interesting area that is not on the ACT.
And I'll talk from the teacher aspect. A lot of teachers would be like, oh, this is another lesson that we have to design. No, The leadership team has done a really good job of detailing the assignments for the students. All the teachers have to do is collect, and most of the work is done on the we're a one-to-one school also, and the students do the work on their Chromebooks and they share it with the teachers, and so we just have to keep a bank of electronic evidence. And eventually, I believe we're going to have to report completion of projects in Infinite Campus, but this is new. We've only done it 10 weeks. So it's still kind of new for us. So eventually the teachers will have to add completion of assignments into Infinite Campus.
Okay, I'll give you a little background into and to answer what she was saying there. I guess the most difficult and challenging thing about this process, as it is with anything, is taking that leap to just go ahead and say, we got to go ahead and start this. It would have been much easier to say, okay, let's plan for a year and let's design all this and let's start it next year. And unfortunately, experience, as you all know as educators, is that whatever you do not start at the very beginning of the school year, 90% of doesn't happen. They're great ideas, great intentions, and really, were it not for everybody leaning on each other, I mean, I was even at a point of saying, let's go ahead and delay it a few weeks, and Mark was like, no, this schedule won't work. We don't just go ahead and jump in, and we're just going to have to do it, you know. And so it was a little stressful in the beginning, but the weird thing about this is kind of, for me personally, the fruition of over 8 years of work. I had been part of multiple projects and different state leadership groups that I've been on, advisory panels and things, and the one overriding thing from industry that you always get is that employees coming into the workforce are not prepared to succeed. And you never hear employers say, you know, these students don't have a high enough ACT score to perform well at our workplace, or, you know, they lack the content knowledge to be able to come in and work. It's always they don't have all of these skills. Most of the employers at the meetings I've been at said, you know, I don't really care what degree someone has. Just give me someone that has these employability skills. You know, and that a lot of times you hear the word soft skills, and I really don't like that, because to me these are hard skills. They're not soft skills. These are the skills that really make a difference. But being able to communicate with others, to make eye contact, to be able to, you know, recognize and understand your strengths. So for me, about 8 years ago, we started the process, and I started working on researching a lot about what is it that makes young people the difference in helping them be able to achieve that level of success. So when you go out and you look at the body of research, there's a lot of stuff out there on leadership for adults, but there's really not a whole lot out there on what do young people need to be able to do that. So what I've been working on, along with a friend of mine, Dr. Rocky Wallace at Asbury University, we've been working on writing a book for like the last 8 years on trying to digest a lot of the leadership research that's out there, but also trying to look at it from an educator's perspective. And what I've tried to do is go back and look at examples, because the one thing that I realized was I started going back, and I'm sure all of you could do this if you go back and think about students you've had along the way. I tried to think about the most successful students that I'd ever encountered, you know, the ones that went on to be doctors or just tremendous, have succeeded at amazing levels. And the weird thing is that your first thought is, well, you know, if they have good enough parents, or if they come from a good socioeconomic background, if they have all the advantages, they'll be there. But when I started examining it, I could think of many cases of students that came from great homes, parents come to open house, they were very involved, and they wound up going down the wrong path. They got in with the wrong group. Something happened along the way. I could think of other students that came from nothing, that bounced from home to home and went on to have very successful lives. So when you really start to examine it, the thing that came very clear to me is that missing ingredient is leadership. Those who respond to peer pressure are those that tend to make bad decisions over time. They get led astray, or they might get lucky and get with a good friend group, but they'll never be highly successful. Those people who are willing to have that initiative and take those steps alone and make those hard decisions, they're the ones that seem to be most successful. So from that perspective, we felt like that it was important to try to set up these steps. And like I said, this was a work in process for about 8 years. But what we're working on now is each 9 weeks taking a step. So our first 9 weeks that we just completed was discovering your strengths. So we had students go through and try to analyze their own strengths, figure out where their talent areas are, and then they completed a vision board at the end of the 9 weeks. The vision board is for them to look at what next steps do I need to, both at the high school level and post-secondary, to go on and be successful in that area. And then we're going to look at other areas. We're going to look at other areas like responsibility, like learning how to utilize failure as a tool for success. Trying to get people to be able to look at those things and move forward in that direction. So for us, okay. So for us, what was referred to earlier from the site-based council is that we want to be able to have students earn a badge at the end of each 9 weeks through a performance task. So for the first 9 weeks, it was the vision board. This 9 weeks, we're working on responsibility. We're going to work on that failure one. That we will then move on into, we have everything from attitude to communication skills. The whole 12 steps are already laid out because it's work that I've been working on for a long time, but it's a 3-year process because if you do it quarterly, it'll take 3 years. So a sophomore will get through all 12 of them. So for this year, sophomores, juniors, and seniors are all completing the same 4 because we try to select the 4 most important ones this year to go ahead and get the ball rolling with. And believe it or not, as Nikki said, it's just amazing how well it has come together to just try to hit the ground running with it. But I guess a lot of the legwork was done, and we've got another staff person who's not here today, but she's been very instrumental in helping design the lessons so that it was very digestible and easy to take the content that was written and then be able to put it into play. So we're very, very excited with where we are. And I think the biggest thing out of this is, at the end of the day, this is really what matters. That test score will mean nothing to that child, that EOC score. I hate to say it. It means something to us as educators, as to a school. But really what we do to help that student transition and succeed when they leave high school, that's really what should matter. Now, it's my belief that if we do these things and we get students to have these traits, they're going to perform good on your end-of-year assessment. Okay, we may not be number 1 in the state. I'm not going to be number 1 in the state on an EOC thing. I'm more concerned about being number 1 on making sure that our kids know what they want to do when they graduate and walk across that stage, and they've got a plan. And that's all that matters to me. And it's been very nice to see that all of us collectively, the staff seems to have adopted that and really jumped into this really well. And then it was really nice when we sit down, when we had the opportunity to do this ACT program, and the middle school joined us in this process, because we realized that it's probably not just good enough to start this in 9th grade. Really, we need to lay the foundation in middle school. So it's been really nice to be able to work with them, and I'm getting ready to hand it over to the middle school, because what they're going to do is they're laying the foundation for how this thing will be able to hit the ground running in high school. So it's been a great process so far, and I want to hand this over to Mr. Estep, the middle school principal.
Thank you. Just to talk a little bit about our approach that we've taken at the middle school, it's a lot different than what Mr. Crum just kind of described for the high school. As he said, they were able to hit the ground and take off with it. We've been a little bit more, we've attacked it a little more slowly, a little bit more deliberately than what he has. What we have began, and we'll continue this through this first semester, our focus was to kind of sell this whole idea of leadership to the students. We wanted to introduce leadership, what it meant to be a student leader, some of the traits and qualities that go along with that. So we've established, and we've done a couple different things so far. We have student leadership awards that we've started to issue and recognize students. They were invited to go to the board meeting, got recognized at the board meeting. We had a big assembly rally in the gymnasium. We have another one scheduled tomorrow where we're going to announce our next set of student leaders. And the kids got excited about it, and I was kind of impressed after our first assembly that we had. And again, it's not, I just didn't want to start out and say, all right, guys, we're going to start this leadership program. First, I want to get them excited about something. I want to get them excited to be, to their name to be associated with the word student leader or leadership, for it to mean something to them. Also, as a school, we've also participated in a couple of different projects, and that's where we're going to kind of focus on for the rest of the year. But for the 7th grade, for example, 7th and 8th grade, they each, and I'm pretty proud of it, but they each participated in a kind of a service leadership project, and they adopted an 8th grade classroom. Our 8th grade classroom adopted a classroom in Texas. Collected and sent a bunch of school supplies down to them. 7th grade did the exact same thing to a different classroom and adopted. So that was the first project that we've already completed. I challenged the staff in our teams. I challenged them to come up with an enriching type of project. That could be, something related to service or leadership, something that's going to make a big, huge impact to our school. And those are things that I'm wanting to kind of focus on, look at this first semester. And as we go forward, as Mr. Crum talked about, our plan is, he's going to come and he's going to discuss in depth his leadership program, what he would like to see the kids achieve in middle school in order to help them better transition into the high school as far as this curriculum is concerned. And after he announces that and presents it to our staff, he then is going to come over with some of these student examples of these vision boards. Our students on their Google devices, just on Google Slides, they're going to create their own vision board as a middle school student. And then what's going to be unique and what's going to be great about it is in a couple of years when they get into high school, they're going to have an opportunity to reflect on that vision board and see, has it changed, or do they even really have an idea when they were in middle school what it took or what it was going to take in order to achieve some of the things that they wanted to achieve? So that's kind of our plan. That's what we're looking at as of right now. Of course, it could always change. But the students we plan, as it was mentioned, I think by Mrs. Cottle a minute ago, our students, as they complete those vision boards, again, we're going to look at some of the micro-credentialing and badge earning as part of that too. So that's where we're at the middle school. Was there anything else? Oh, as how we're going to incorporate it. We already have it built into our schedule, an enrichment / intervention period. And so once a week, whenever we start working on our vision boards, once a week is what we're going to ask the teachers to, instead of working on enrichment or intervention during that time, we're going to look on our leadership project.
I can talk. How much time do I have?
Negative 7 minutes.
Okay, I'll be quick. The challenge is when you're talking to a middle school student about leadership, they kind of just look at you, because middle school students really don't know how to talk to adults anyway. And I've noticed this a few years ago working or supervising the cafeteria during lunchtime, or just in the morning when they walk by and good morning, it's good morning, or they just don't know how to ask questions or talk to adults. So like Mr. Crum said earlier about laying the foundation is what we're not going to be as specific or as sophisticated maybe as the high school program is, but if we can lay a foundation for those type of skills, I think did you make up a word earlier? Employability. That's a good word. If we lay those skills down for the high school, and then they'll be that much more, I think, apt to be successful once they graduate, able to go into some career, college, whatever they decide to do. And that's our hope. The challenging part of that is going to be align the curriculum, because we're not departmentalized. We have a team set up, and of course with our schedule it's not on the same timeline every period, so that's going to be a challenge for us to come up with some opportunities for students during those same time frames as the high school.